Representative John Lewis, you have devoted your life to protecting human rights and securing civil liberties. Known for the many key roles you played to end segregation in this country, you have been called one. Your work continues today as you stand firm and lead the effort. Your work continues today as you stand firm and lead the effort in pursuit of equality for all those who live in this great nation. Born the son of sharecroppers in 1940, you grew up on your family's farm and attended segregated schools in Pike County, Alabama. Inspired in your youth by the activism that surrounded the Montgomery bus boycott and the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., you decided to join the civil rights movement. Since then, you have been on the front line of progressive social movements and the human rights struggles in America. As a student at Fisk University, you organized sit-in demonstrations at segregated lunch counters in Nashville, Tennessee, and you volunteered to participate in the freedom rides of 1961 across the South. You were beaten and arrested, but you were not deterred. In 1963, you were named chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which you helped form, and also became one of the Big Six leaders of the civil rights movement. You went on to be an architect of and a keynote speaker at the historic March on Washington in August 1963. On March 7, 1965, you led more than 600 peaceful civil rights protesters who were beaten back by Alabama state troopers as you marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge from Selma to Montgomery. This event, later known as Bloody Sunday, sped up the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. After you became director of the Voter Education Project in 1970, the organization helped to register millions of minority voters. You next ran for office in 1981, winning a seat on the Atlanta City Council. You have served as a U.S. representative to Georgia's 5th Congressional District since your election in 1986. Your commitment to the highest ethical standards and moral principles has won you the admiration of many of your colleagues on both sides of the political aisle. In addition to your continued work in Congress and international institutions, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Lincoln Medal, you received the only John F. Kennedy Profile and Courage Award for Lifetime Achievement ever granted by the John F. Kennedy Library Foundation. John Lewis, in recognition of your courage, your determination, and your perseverance to secure and protect the rights of others, the Board of Trustees of Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts is proud to award you the degree of Doctor of Public Service honoris causa. It is now my great honor and privilege to present to you our commencement speaker, the Honorable John Lewis.
Mr. President, members of the Board of Trustees, members of the faculty, parents, family, and friends, the honorable elected officials and appointed officials, I'm honored to be here, to see each and every one of you, and to the class, this class. You're beautiful, you're handsome, and you look good. The class of 2017, you're smart, and I know you're on your way to go out and change the world. Now, Mr. President, thank you for honoring a poor child who grew up in rural Alabama, 50 miles from Montgomery, outside of a little place called Troy. Mr. President, you told the graduates, you told the teachers, all of the professors, all of the parents, that my father was a sharecropper. That is true. Was a tenant farmer. I remember so well when I was 4 years old in 1944. My father had saved $300, and a man sold him 110 acres of land. My family still owns this land today. On this farm, we raise a lot of cotton and corn, peanuts, hogs, cows, and chickens. I don't eat too many peanuts today. Don't tell the farmers in Georgia, I don't eat too many peanuts today. I ate so many peanuts when I was growing up, I just don't want to see any more peanuts. Sometimes when I'm flying from Atlanta to Washington or Washington back to Atlanta, the flight attendant tried to offer me some peanuts. I said, no, thank you. I don't care for any peanuts. But also on this farm, we raised a lot of chickens, you heard me say. And as a little boy, I fell in love with raising chickens. Any of you know anything about raising chickens? Why don't you show me your hands? You know anything about raising? Well, why don't we compare notes? But growing up there, I did fall in love with raising chickens. When the setting hen was set, I would take the fresh eggs, mark them with a pencil, place them under the setting hen, and wait for 3 long weeks for the little chicks to hatch. Now, some of you may be saying, I know some of your smart professors are saying, now, John Lewis, why do you mark those fresh eggs with a pencil before you place them under the setting hen? Well, from time to time, another hen will get on that same nest, and there will be some more fresh eggs. You have to be able to tell the fresh eggs from the eggs that were already under the setting hen. Do you follow me? You don't follow me. It's okay. It's all right. So when these little chicks were hatched, I would fool these setting hens. I would cheat on these setting hens. I would take these little chicks and give them to another hen, or put them in a box with a lantern, raise them on their own, get some more fresh eggs, mark them with a pencil, place them under the setting hen, encourage the setting hen to stay on the nest for another 3 weeks. I kept on fooling and cheating on these setting hens. And when I look back on it, it was not the right thing to do. It was not the moral thing to do. It was not the most loving thing to do. It was not the most nonviolent thing to do. It was not the most democratic thing to do. But I was never quite able to save $18.98 to order the most inexpensive incubator from the Sizzle Roebuck store. Any of you old enough to remember the Sizzle Roebuck catalog? You really do? Maybe your grandparents or great-grandparents. This big book, this heavy book, this thick book, some people call it the wish book. I wish I had this. I wish I had that. I just kept on wishing. But as a little boy, about 8 or 9 years old, I'm very good in raising chickens. I wanted to be a minister. I wanted to preach the gospel. So with the help of my brothers and sisters and cousins, we would gather all of our chickens together in the chicken yard, like together here in this auditorium. and we would have church. I would start speaking and preaching, and some of the chicken would bow their heads. Some of the chicken would shake their heads. They never quite said amen. But I'm convinced that some of those chickens that I preached to in the 40s and the 50s tended to listen to me much better than some of my colleagues listen to me today in the Congress. As a matter of fact, some of those chickens was just a little more productive. At least they produce eggs. But that's enough of that. When we would visit the little town of Troy, visit Montgomery, visit Tuskegee, visit Birmingham, I saw those signs that said white men, white women, white waiting, colored waiting. To go downtown on a Saturday afternoon to the theater to see a movie. All of us little black children had to go upstairs to the balcony. All of the little white children went downstairs to the first floor. I would come home and ask my mother, my father, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, why? And they would say, that's the way it is. Don't get in the way, don't get in trouble. But in 1955, 15 years old in the 10th grade, I heard about Rosa Parks. Heard the words of Martin Luther King Jr. on our radio. The action of Rosa Parks, the words and leadership of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. inspired me to find a way to get in the way, and I got in the way. In 1956, with some of my brothers and sisters and cousins, we went down to the public library, trying to get a library card, trying to check out some books. And we were told by the librarian that the library was for whites only and not for coloreds. I never went back to that library until July 5th, 1998, for a book signing of my first book, Walking with the Wind. Hundreds of blacks and white citizens showed up. End of the program, end of the book signing, they gave me a library card. By this time in the Congress, it says something about the distance that we've come and the progress we've made. In 1957, 17 years old, getting ready to go off to college, applied to attend a little college 10 miles from my home called Troy State College, now known as Troy University. Submitted my application, my high school transcript. I never heard a word from the college. I wrote a letter to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I didn't tell any of my teachers. I didn't tell my mother, my father, any of my sisters or brothers. I told Dr. King I needed his help. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote me back and sent me a round-trip Greyhound bus ticket and invited me to come to Montgomery to meet with him. In the meantime, I've been accepted at a little college in Nashville, Tennessee. An uncle of mine gave me $100, a $100 bill. Gave me a Foot Locker. I put my few books, my clothing, everything that I own except those chickens in that Foot Locker, and took a Greyhound bus to Nashville, Tennessee. After being in Nashville for about 3 weeks, I told one of my teachers that I'd been in contact with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This teacher knew Dr. King. They both had studied together at Morehouse College in Atlanta. Dr. King got back in church with me and suggested when I was home for spring break to come and see him. So in March of 1958, I boarded a bus, traveled from Troy to Montgomery, and a young lawyer by the name of Fred Gray, who had been a lawyer for Rosa Parks, for Dr. King, in the Montgomery movement, he became our lawyer during the Freedom Rides. and during the march from Selma to Montgomery, met me at the Greyhound bus station and drove me to the First Baptist Church in downtown Montgomery, pastored by the Reverend Ralph Abernathy, a colleague of Dr. King, and ushered me into the church. I saw Martin Luther King Jr. and Ralph Abernathy standing behind a desk. I was so scared I didn't know what to say or what to do. And Dr. King said, "Well, you John Lewis? Are you the boy from Troy?" I said, "Dr. King, I'm John Robert Lewis, but you still call me the boy from Troy." Growing up there, we grew up with my mother, my father, my grandparents, and great-grandparents were so afraid. They kept telling me, "Don't get in trouble. Don't get in the way." But as a student in Nashville, 17, 18, and 19 years old, we started studying the way of peace, studying the philosophy of nonviolence, studying the role in civil disobedience, studying the life and teaching of Gandhi. We had role playing and we had social drama. And then we start sitting there. Be sitting there in an orderly, peaceful, nonviolent fashion, and someone would come up and spit on you with a lighted cigarette out in your hair or down your back, pour hot water, hot coffee, hot chocolate on you. And then we were told if we continue to sit in, we would be arrested. We would be taken to jail. During those days, young people, young students, you heard young people, especially young guys, talking about dressing and looking fresh, sharp, or clean. Well, I made up my mind. I had what I called an executive session with myself. I said, if I'm going to get arrested and go to jail, I want it to look fresh. I want it to look clean. I want it to look sharp. So I had a little money. But I went to a used men's store and bought a suit. And a vest came with the suit. I got dressed on Saturday morning, February 27, 1960, with other students. We went downtown to sit in. I was arrested. I felt free. I felt liberated. I felt like I crossed over, but I did look sharp. I paid $5 for this suit. If I still had this suit today, I probably could sell it on eBay for a lot of money. We've come a distance. We made a lot of progress, but we still have a distance to go. There are forces in America today that want to take us back to another place, another time. We come too far, we made too much progress, and we must not go back. We must go forward as a nation and as a people. I don't want to go back. I got arrested 40 times during the 60s. And since I've been in Congress, arrested another 5 times. My last arrest, almost 2 years ago, when 200 private citizens and 8 Democratic members of Congress had a protest on the Capitol ground, trying to get the Speaker of the House to bring forth a comprehensive immigration reform bill. If he brought this bill forth, every Democratic member would have voted for it, and enough Republican members would have voted for it. We would have passed it, and President Obama would have signed it into law. It doesn't make sense for millions and millions of people, including little children, to be living in fear in the United States of America. Set people on a path to citizenship. When the Pope came and spoke to a joint session of the Congress, he said, we all are immigrants. We all come from some other place. A. Philip Randolph, the Dean of Black Leadership, said during the 60s, when we were planning a march on Washington in 1963, he kept saying, my brothers and sisters, our foremothers and our forefathers all came to this great land in different ships, but we all are in the same boat now. Martin Luther King Jr. put it another way. We must learn to live together as brothers and sisters. If not, we will perish as fools. There's a mean spirit in America today. During the 60s, during the days of President Kennedy, there was a greater sense of hope and a greater sense of optimism. We must rebuild that sense of hope, that sense of optimism, and never let anything get you down. Young people, as you leave here, as you leave MCLA, go out there, get in the way, get in trouble, good trouble, necessary trouble, and make some noise. Country needs you now more than ever before. When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have a moral obligation, a mandate to stand up, and speak out. Be brave, be bold, be courageous, and never, ever let anything get you down. Don't get lost in a sea of despair. And never hate, for hate is too heavy a burden to bear. Just love everybody. There were individuals of mine, individual friends of mine, friends that I knew so well. When we left Washington, D.C. on May 4th, 1961, arriving in a little town called Wright. When we left Washington, D.C. on May 4th, 1961, arriving in a little town called Rock Hill, South Carolina, we tried to enter a so-called white waiting room. We were jumped by press charges. We said, no, we believe in the way of peace, the way of love. We believe in the philosophy of nonviolence. We continue to ride. Many years later, to be exact, in February '09, a month after President Obama had been inaugurated, a member of the Klan who was in his 70s and his son in his 40s, who had beaten us, came to my office in Washington and said, Mr. Lewis, I'm one of the people that beat you and your seatmate. His 40s, who had beaten us, came to my office in Washington and said, Mr. Lewis, I'm one of the people that beat you and your seatmate. Will you forgive me? I want to apologize. Will you forgive me? His son started crying. He started crying. They hugged me. I hugged them back. And the three of us cried together. It is the power of the way of peace. It is the power of the way of love. We must have the capacity and the ability to forgive. And I happen to believe there's a spark of the divine in each and every one of us, and we don't have a right to abuse it. I happen to believe there's a spark of the divine in each and every one of us to abuse it or to destroy. So as you leave here, I wish you well. Go in peace, with hope, with one love, and turn this society upside down to set it right side up. Thank you very much.